Well, welcome back to Data Driven Recruiting. My name is Sophia Beck, and today I have my co-host Tigran Sloan here. Hi,
Hey,
Tigran.
Sophia. Hey, I skipped a week. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. And well, today I have a pretty exciting topic to discuss with you, which is top 3 things to avoid when conducting technical interviews. And I think it's especially relevant given that a lot of people are conducting technical interviews online remotely, and I think
Right.
there are more things, like it's because it's so new. I think people are making some of the mistakes that could make the candidate experience not as good, or even like some legal compliance issues. So tell us, what are some of the things that we absolutely must avoid?
Yeah, I think a lot of these are applicable even in the non-COVID times. But I guess, as you said, in COVID times, more mistakes start happening because you kind of lose some of that structure and consistency you used to have before. So
Right.
let's start with number one. I think number one, and I'm sure all developers who've ever been through a technical interview would agree with me, is conducting a technical interview on a whiteboard or a text editor. Everybody hates this. It's really bad. There's still really prominent companies doing it. One of them
Like,
being,
you mean like asking them to write code on a whiteboard, or
yeah. So
like
like asking
text
someone to
editor?
code in a whiteboard or a Google Doc, right? Like, or
Yeah.
another, like just simple plain text editor. Because it's kind of crazy, right? Like if you've ever tried, I
Hmm.
don't know, if you know any programming, there's one of the
I
most
personally
common,
have done that on the interview. I was asked to
like
write a
I've,
SQL
I've,
query on it.
I've
Yeah.
been in like a SQL query. Most of the stuff that you write is like, I don't know, asterisk or like a colon, right? Like that
Right,
when you're
right.
writing actual code like JavaScript, you have squiggly brackets. You know those ones?
I
Like
know,
it's
yeah.
insane to like try to draw a
Throw
squiggly
it on the board,
bracket.
yeah.
it will, it
and
will
and then they'll be
explode you,
questioning,
right?
is that a bracket? Is that bracelet? Or is like, what is it?
I know, right? So, I mean, and that's just one example, right? From like lacking auto completion to just
Mm.
feeling really awkward with your spacing and everything else. It's like trying to interview, I don't know, a pilot and giving them a paper airplane to display for you how they would do like takeoff and landing or something like that,
Yeah, it's
right? Like,
making the whole experience unnecessarily more difficult and stressful, right? Just
and
distraction
And the
overall.
most mind-blowing thing is that there's
Mm.
still really prominent companies. I mean, it's been changing the last 10 years or so, but there's still really prominent companies who are doing it. And Google is one example. Like, so if you go interview at Google today, if you're on a phone screen, you would get a Google Doc. And if you go on
Mm.
site, whenever on sites are back, you'll be asked to code on a whiteboard. So number one thing, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. All right. Number two.
So number two is somewhat relevant, but it's the reasons not to do it are less obvious. And the number two is asking candidates to share their screen or bring their own laptop to the interview.
Hmm.
While it seems to make sense from the first glance, right? So when you're trying to optimize for candidate experience, like what better candidate experience than giving them their own comfort of their own keyboard and their
Their
own
own
tools and
environment
everything?
set
Yeah,
up.
like it's all
Yeah.
theirs.
It's better than the
Well,
text editor.
it's way better than the text editor, right? From the candidate
Yeah.
experience perspective. But from a consistency and legal perspective and bias perspective, it's a huge, huge red flag because
Mm.
as soon as you ask the candidate to share their screen, well, one, you're going to start seeing things you should not be seeing and you do not want to be seeing. You're opening a Pandora box that can cause even more bias than someone's resume. We
Give us
don't
an
have
example. What are some of the
well,
things we shouldn't see?
like for
Yeah.
example, right? Let's say you open up. I share my screen, and my desktop saver is like Donald Trump.
Mm.
So, and there you go, like political bias. And if you don't like
Right.
the president, that means you're instantly going to have a reaction to this candidate you don't want to be having because you're not evaluating them based on their political views. You're evaluating them based on their ability to perform the job. And even
Right.
if they just share one like their Chrome video, not the entire screen, well, you're going to be seeing their Chrome extensions. You're going to accidentally see their browsing history. And once they start typing in something in the tab, you're going to see their previous searches, like all the things that you should just not be seeing and looking at.
That seems like a legal nightmare.
It's a legal HR nightmare, and sooner or later, one of the candidates is going to sue the company saying that I've been rejected due to something that the interviewer saw during the interview.
Right. Yeah. Why even have that, open that up, right? It's a Pandora's box. Don't do it. Yeah.
Don't open that up.
Okay. Number 3.
And number 3 is, again, somewhat obvious, but a lot of people still do it, which is choosing interview questions on the spot. So essentially showing up to an interview, not really having an exact plan and just improvising on the spot. Terrible idea on many, many, many levels. The first one being when you realize how biased we are and how much our sort of mood and attitude and decision-making consistency switches during the day, right? So like if you're having this interview before lunch versus after lunch, or if you just had a tough meeting or a tough conversation with somebody, the way you evaluate the candidate is going to be drastically different. And one thing that can make it even worse is basically not having an exact game plan in terms of the sequence of questions and how you're going to be evaluating candidates' performance on those questions beforehand.
Because it just leads to it seems like there's no consistency in evaluation itself.
Right. And again, bringing consistency to interviews is hard, even when you have like a consistent set of questions. If you don't have a consistent set of questions, what's going to happen is you're going to give the candidates that you like easier questions, the candidates that you don't like harder questions. You're going to judge some of them more harshly and others less, depending on your mood and what time of the day the interview is being conducted. There was a pretty big research, I don't remember the name right now, but the idea was that when they looked at how judges, right, like federal,
Supreme Court judges,
court judges made decisions on the same cases, it really differed depending on time of the day and if they had lunch already or didn't have lunch, right? So even judges whose job it is all day long is to make fair judgments can have that much of a sort of swing in their decision making. Imagine if you're basically picking questions on the spot, what kind of an effect that's going to leave on your
so I mean,
consistency.
Although probably getting like the perfect consistency is difficult, but structured interview itself at least guide you half of the way to be in the right set. And it sounds like it's also just preparedness. Like if you have to just come up with a question on the spot, not only that it's not going to produce consistent results, but also although a lot of people have the interview fatigue because like you're doing so many interviews, but you do need to come prepared just like any other meetings you're conducting.
It's candidate experience.
Yeah, and it's a very important meeting for you to make a big decision as well as a candidate, right?
Right, exactly, right. You don't want the candidate to walk off being like, I feel like the interviewer was completely unprepared and was just picking stuff on the spot, because it's a small community and word travels fast, and you don't want that to be one of the first interactions with your company's brand.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your insights and advice on this interesting topic, and hope a lot more people can be more prepared and avoid some of the big mistakes that we talked about while conducting technical interviews.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today, for everyone. And for more tips and insights on data-driven recruiting, please visit ddr.codesignal.com. We'll see you next time.